Auburn basketball suffers their first SEC loss of the season to the Gators, but do they still deserve to be #1 in the country?
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub, Ike Jones, Be Will, Mike G. You are now listening to
Weekend Tailgate coming at you guys, brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Our friends at Golden's Cast Iron, longtime sponsors of the War Report. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, you should become a member of the Green Name Gang. Hit that join button, $5.99 a month will get you there. Our guy Ike Jones is on the road traveling, covering Auburn basketball for you guys. You can help support that work by joining as a member. He'll be in Tuscaloosa. That's dirty work there, going to Tuscaloosa. But he'll be there for you guys. He'll be at the Vanderbilt game, I believe, up in Nashville as well, too. We've got the SEC tournament coming in Nashville. The War Report is everywhere, giving you guys the Auburn coverage you need and deserve. So please join as a member. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. If you see somebody who has a black name in the chat and you want them to have a green name, gifted memberships is a great way to help somebody else join our community. Also, this segment is brought to you by our friends at Vintage 2298 Restaurant. Visit Vintage 2298 at East University Drive, 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. If you're in the Auburn, Opelika area and you're looking for some good eats, look, even if you're in Columbus or Phoenix City, you don't mind a little 30-minute drive, Vintage has you covered with some of the best food you'll have anywhere. Our guy, Chef Randall Baldwin, serving up something special for you guys this off season for football, in season for basketball, but they are continuing to serve the community. We appreciate them. And our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. So if that loss to Florida hurt you in the fields, the Rogue Shop can help dull that a little bit for you. Again, rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off.
Yes, indeed. Mike G was live in person.
I was
watching an unfortunate sequence of events transpire for the second year in a row. Somebody comes into Neville Arena, big game. Auburn takes an L, still licking their wounds from a Gator-sized chomp. What went wrong, man? What was from your perspective? I wasn't on the post game, so I haven't had an opportunity to give my thoughts on this, but I'm going to open it up and let you talk about it first. What did you feel like went wrong for Auburn in this game?
You know what's crazy is in the past, when we talk about Auburn losses like this, we'd be talking about an offense that really kind of like failed to produce Ike, or something that went a lot more wrong than what we saw last night. Last night, Auburn was not great, 42% from the field, but they still put up 81 points in this loss. Yeah. And they lost by 9 in a game where they missed 9 free throws. So as bad as they played in some ways, this was kind of an average performance by the Auburn Tigers with a down game by Denver Jones. Janai Broome sat. There was one thing that I noted, like, after what looked like intentional foul where he at half court where he stopped the Florida player from advancing the ball, they sat Janai Broome for an extended period of time after that. I don't know if that was just to cool them down. Nobody asked Coach Bruce Pearl about it in the post game, but ultimately, Janai came back. He was fairly effective in this game, 8 of 19 from the field for 18 points, 11 rebounds, smooth double-double for him. But you lost this game, and there are, I think, some coaching decisions that we could take a look at and say, hey, could a coaching decision here or there had been the difference in maybe pulling this one out at home? Remember, they just barely snuck by Tennessee, 2 weeks ago at home. And so people have come into Neville and given Auburn a run for their money. The SEC is tough this year. Now, Florida should be noted. This is the first time in a few years that a team has beat two number ones in the same season.
Hmm.
And Florida pulled that off. So hats off to them, man. They've got a tough squad. I'm not going to lie. I probably underestimated them a little bit coming into this game, given that the game was at Neville and how they looked in their previous matchups. They look great. They didn't look great to me, Ike, but I don't know what it is, man. I don't know if Bruce takes it easy on Todd Golden or what the deal is. But it should also be noted that I think that Florida won this game in large part, and you got to give credit where credit is due, to a monster game by Walter Clayton Jr., especially in the first half. He hit 5 straight buckets at one point. Looked like he couldn't miss. Now, he finished 6 of 11 from the field, led Florida with 19 points. He hit 4 of 8 from 3, really was a killer there. He had a block. He had a steal. He added 9 assists and 6 rebounds. This was a really, really good game by Walter Clayton Jr. And the inability to contain him in the first half, I think ultimately ended up being the difference in this one.
Yeah, no, Auburn absolutely lost this game in the first half. This is, to me, a lot like the Duke loss, where the first half, defensively, Auburn seemed lost in their rotations. They weren't getting out to shooters like they needed to, and the other team got enough distance put between them that Auburn wasn't able to fully overcome it in the second half. Because second half, Auburn essentially played Florida to a draw, right? Like it was first half scoring. Let me take a look at this properly here. 48-38, and in the second half, Auburn wins 43-42, right? You lost this game in the first half, right? If you play a better first half game, you put yourself in a position where the second half, if you play exactly like that, you win the game, right? So you lost the game in the first half, and it was mostly defensive rotations in the first half that made it. And then down the stretch, you just didn't get enough stops to be able to kind of overcome that. They made it interesting, but man, I'd be doggone if every time it seemed like Auburn had something going, something dumb would happen, and you're just like, yo, it's one of them nights, bro. They don't have it tonight. And Florida seemed to be making everything, like they were making circus shots and they're making contested shots.
A lot of deep threes, a lot of deep threes. I mean, they weren't shy from pulling from beyond, 5-6 feet from beyond the arc, and those shots were falling for them last night. So it was a special performance, I think, by Florida last night and in Neville Arena. After the game, Todd Golden was noted as saying, I think we played as well as we could have played in this environment. So he recognizes what a tall task it is to come into an environment like this and play the way that they played. Now they finished.
He said he doesn't think many other teams are going to be able to walk
or anybody else
with a win. Yeah,
anybody else. Now they finished 48% from the field, but they were close to 60% from the field for a good portion of this game. They shot well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of really great shot making and bad defense that put Auburn in that hole that they tried to dig out of. And again, I just don't feel it didn't feel like it never fully felt like Auburn was going to come back and win that game. Like every moment where you're like, oh, here they go, they're about to make their run, they do something crazy, and it's just like, yo, what is going on with these guys tonight? You already mentioned him, but let's take a minute and talk about Denver Jones. Like he just didn't have a good game, man. On the night, Denver Jones, 2 points, 0 of 4 from he was the exact opposite in this game that he was in the last game. Like the last game, he did not miss a shot from the field. This game, he did not make a shot from the field. He missed 2 of the 4 free throw attempts that he had. He did have 7 rebounds, which he needed to be able to get in there and get on the boards. Only 1 assist and 3 turnovers in this game. 2 of the turnovers that Denver had were 2 of the worst turnovers, I think. Like they came at the worst time in the most ridiculous. Like Auburn had gotten a stop. It was either a steal or a rebound, and he's going to throw and advance the ball up, and he throws it right to a Florida. I was like, yo, the first one slipped out of his hand. The second one, I don't even think he was paying attention, and he just throws it up the sideline, and somebody's there. And I was just like, yo, what in the Peyton Thorne is happening right now?
Don't put that evil on Peyton. Look, he didn't look. He looked. It's crazy. In the pregame, he looked locked in. He looked as locked in as I've ever seen him. And for the home games, one of my routines is I go down to the baseline, Ike, and just note the presence of the players, right? How what are their kind of like pregame quirks, things that they do. I note their routines. Jakai and Janai and Tahad have this pregame routine where they sit on the bench and they shoot threes sitting on the bench. Right. So they have things that they go through. If you're at the games, you see them, they shoot half court shots and, they do kind of like a little mini dunk contest before the game starts. And I didn't note anything odd with Denver. But when the game started, it was clear. It almost felt like his mind was somewhere else in that game. Coming off a game where he played very efficiently. Again, 4 for 4 from the field. He hit all his 3-pointers. He hit every free throw, and he did not commit a personal foul. This was the polar opposite of that in the very next game. So I'm not sure what to do with that, but hopefully, you get him to bounce back. Bruce Pearl, I asked him about this. He said, "Look, I'm not worried about Denver Jones. He'll bounce back from this. We'll talk to him. He's a great player, and he's been a huge part of why they've been able to go on the sort of streak that they've gone on so far this part of the season. That just happens, and at least it happened against a team worthy of, you know what I mean? This wasn't like, oh, they played, some South Carolina and they played so terrible that they lost the game against a team that hadn't won a game in the SEC, right? This was number 6 Florida that's already taken down to number 1 this year. And look, they played a mediocre game and they got beat by a team that played a little better than they did. Now I did have a quote before we move on from Bruce Pearl after the game. He says, "I don't know that I made our team understand how important this game was to Florida. If they lose this game, they're 4 games behind us in the league. Right now, they're only 2, so they just played harder. They played better. They played desperately. We did not look like the number 1 team in the country, and we lost as a result." I think that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah, they absolutely did not look like Florida looked like the hungrier team on the court for the vast majority of that. Auburn seemed as if the edge just wasn't there, particularly defensively. Again, it's difficult for me to say Auburn played poorly in a game where they score 81 points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
When you give up 90, then okay, you're the defense, which is the thing that we've kind of repeated over and over again, is the thing that makes Auburn's team good consistently. Is they're going to bring it on the defensive end every single night. They did not have it on the defensive end last night versus Florida. And here's the thing: you scored 81 points in a game where you were missing layups. Like Miles Kelly missed a bunny layup. Janai Broome had like 4 or 5 shots there inside the paint that he missed. It was the most inexplicable types of ways in which they were missing shots, and you're just like, yo, what is happening right now with this team? Because this is not the Auburn team that you typically see go out here and play. And I noted this from the very beginning. Janai Broome, he struggled in the first half of this game with, I don't know what it was about the way that they were playing him, other than he was wanting to get foul calls that he was not getting. But he just wasn't embracing the challenge of the physicality, I think, the way that he needed to be able to, in order for them to punch back when Florida was punching early in this game. Because Auburn had a 10-point lead. I think people, that it quickly gets away from your mind that Auburn was winning this game by 10 points at one point in time in the first half. And then it just kind of, Chaney Johnson was hooping. Like, Chaney played an amazing game for the vast majority of this game. He had 13 points, 6 of 9 shooting. Like, Chaney was the one in the first half that I felt like was really out there and ready for the moment. He was going and grabbing boards. Janai didn't feel like he was locked in like that early. And I don't know that he ever showed the dominance he needed to be a National Player of the Year candidate in a big moment like that. What did you think of the play from Janai tonight? You said he was effective at points. He was 8 of 19, 18 points, right? 1 of 3 from 3. He missed 1 free throw, 6 boards, 6 assists, and only 1 turnover, 2 block shots. So again, the stat line doesn't look bad, but in a game in which you need big stops and you need big buckets, he just didn't seem to show up enough for this team.
Yeah, look, they've been able to turn to Janai all season when they've needed a little extra something. And for what it's worth, I think he gave them that down the stretch. It just wasn't enough because Florida was that much better than Auburn in every other game. It's been enough. 70% Janai Broome was enough to put Auburn over the top versus Tennessee at home. And, we noted on this show, you lose that game without Janai. You may lose that game badly without Janai the way everybody else played. And so you won that game. And in this one, I think he does what he normally does. It just wasn't enough because you got the game that you got from Denver. And I don't want anybody to hear me blaming, you lost. This is Denver's fault. It was just, look, this was a special performance by Florida, and you needed a little bit more contribution. Chad Baker-Mazara only 6 points on 2 of 6 shooting as well.
Yeah, Chad didn't have a great game. He was not locked in early in this game, and he was taking some bad shots. And like, I think Chad's issue for me in this game was his shot selection. I don't think he was taking, like, early. He looked like he was okay, 2 of 3, and then after he missed, so he hit that first 3-pointer, he got fouled on it. Then he made a little kind of mid-range shot from the left side of the lane. But after that third shot, I think he kind of got hit on something. Like, it just seemed like he just kind of got disengaged for a minute after his first rotation. And I don't think he ever really recovered and became the contributor that, again, we've noted Chad Baker-Mazara is one of those guys who he's important to what Auburn needs to be able to do. And, in a game where you get 6 points from him, only 1 rebound and 2 assists, that's not enough from Chad. Like, you have to have Chad impact the game in different ways. And defensively, he wasn't being a pest, and he didn't give you anything offensively as well. This was just not a good game from him either.
No, it wasn't. Look, when you look at it, Jaheim Hudson had 4 minutes in this game. He didn't really have an impact on this one. Chaney Johnson, I thought, gave them a lot of good minutes. 21 minutes, 6 of 9 from the field. He hit the only free throw he took on an and one. Only committed 3 personal fouls. He had 2 steals and a block. If Denver gives you the same type of effort that Chaney gave you might win this game.
Yeah.
Right. At the very least, it's a little bit more in doubt at the end of the game. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see how they bounce back from this loss. But I did not expect that. I didn't think that their first loss in SEC play would come at home. And I think that snapped a 30-game home winning streak for Auburn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was probably the more disappointing thing, is that it was a home loss. You didn't want to see him take a L at the crib, but maybe this was what they needed, right? Like, just something. Man, listen, I don't want this to be the Dunk on Denver Jones show, right? But when I tell you, and I didn't want to say it out loud, but now that it's happened, I'm going to say it.
All right.
At the end of the Oklahoma game, they do the whole thing where they have the social media cameras, somebody following folks, and they're saying stuff out there on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Denver Jones looked right into that camera, and they posted it on the social media page. They was like, number 1 team in the country, come watch us get this dub Saturday. And I was like, they're going to lose. Like, the minute I heard him say it, I was like, they're going to lose the game. They're going to lose the game. Not only did they lose, but the guy who made the statement didn't have a good game. I was like, Denver, don't say that, bro.
Yeah, that's a rough one. I'll tell you this, though. You weren't going to win them all, and we've been saying this. Like, we thought that the loss would have come already in the last 6-game stretch that we talked about. I was convinced they would lose one in that stretch that started at South Carolina. But you just didn't think it would be this one. As a matter of fact, I thought, if anything, it might be on the road at Tuscaloosa next Saturday in Tuscaloosa. But maybe this is the reminder that you need, that you're not invincible. And on any given night, you can give a good performance and still get beat because they just wanted it more. Again, Bruce Pearl said it in the postgame. He said they played more desperately. Right. I don't think Auburn understood how much this game meant to Florida. So you're only 2 games back, and man, the SEC now suddenly doesn't look like Auburn and everybody else, does it?
Right. Yeah, you don't look invincible because you've shown the chink in your armor. Now, the chink in your armor, and this is what I want to go into before we get into the break, is what is the lesson that Auburn should learn from this game? Like, or what is the lesson that other teams see from this and say, oh, that's how you beat Auburn?
Yeah, listen, the lesson is your an okay performance by you is not going to be enough in the SEC this year.
Hmm.
Every
Not
single
against the
night.
better teams for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for what, 2 straight weeks, Auburn has been everybody's Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I know, this is Super Bowl Sunday, but for 2 straight weeks, everybody has been gunning. I've been tweeting, I've been talking about on this show. If you don't bring your A game every single night, you can get beat.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to be the one to knock off number one. This win did more for Florida than it would have done for Auburn.
That's a fact.
If you're Auburn,
That's a huge fact. Yeah,
Yeah.
Auburn wins this game. It's another notch in their belt. Florida
That's it.
needed this for a resume thing for sure.
Yeah. You already have 11 quad one wins coming in, or 12 quad one wins coming into this one.
Right.
So this win, while it would have been great, I don't think it would have improved Auburn's resume that much, but it significantly improved Florida's standing. So you had to understand that, and this is where I think you have a chance to reintroduce that killer instinct and say, look, man, we're going to step on everybody's throat. Maybe I don't know. I can't say that they got cocky or I don't know. I don't know that.
I wouldn't call it cockiness. I would say that they probably lost a little bit of edge, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a mental fatigue of feeling like you're having to be perfect every single game to stay at the top.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know that it's cockiness, because when you're playing well and you're beating teams, maybe you do feel a little like it's almost like, man, we can, and I've been saying this for weeks. Auburn has been accustomed to, okay, whatever style of play you want to play, we'll play that and we'll do whatever, and they've been allowing other teams to kind of set the tone for the game and then matching that. And I think Auburn needs to get back to establishing the tone themselves. This is how we're going to play this game, as opposed to accepting whatever everybody else is doing and saying, all right, cool. Well, if that's how y'all want to play, this is what we're going to play. And Florida was just better at their game tonight than Auburn was at trying to play Florida's game. Because make no mistake, this was the tempo and the way that this game is exactly how Florida wanted it to be
played it. Yeah. I do want to note, though, looking at my transcript from the post-game press conference last night, when talking about Denver, he did feel like fatigue played a factor in how Denver played. They have had kind of a grueling stretch here, and he feels like the fatigue maybe caught up with them a little bit last night.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got opportunities still left on the schedule to quiet some of the talk that's out there right now of people trying to act as if Auburn is doomed for the remainder of this season. And a lot of people just forecasting like, oh, I've seen this coming for weeks. This team is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, listen, if you're expecting, I think the expectations of a flawless basketball team are a little unfair, right? Like, yes, this team is not perfect, but they won, right? And at the end of the day, win the game.
I want to point out the absurdity of the statement saying, I saw a second loss coming for weeks. I knew they were going to lose a second game. What?
Right. Yes. Everybody knew they were going to lose at some point in time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I knew they were going to lose one to the 6th ranked team in the country. Yeah, of course they were going to lose.
Yeah, again, to the 6th ranked team in the country. That's the losses that you have are to the team that's currently number 2 in the country and the team that's currently number 6. Only 2 times you've lost this season. That is a phenomenal resume, considering how many other top 25 teams you've beaten this season. So, the thought process that Auburn is just going to be this juggernaut that can't lose, like it's a very toxic fan mindset that makes you feel like, oh my God, this is what's wrong with this team. They're blah, 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 and this and this and that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, okay. And now let's go through everybody else's resume and you tell me what's wrong with all of those other teams. And I'll still tell you Auburn's better than them.
Look at the 2 games that Auburn lost and then look at Florida's 2 losses and tell me which 2 losses were worse.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Look at the games they lost.
Yeah. Look at everybody else's resume and put it next to Auburn's resume. Look at everybody else's roster composition and put it next to Auburn's roster composition. Look at the film on these other teams and tell me where there's a team that is, and we'll get into the rankings here in a minute, but I just think the mindset that Auburn has to be this unbeatable juggernaut or they suck. Like there's no in between for some people. It's like, oh, this team sucks, man. They're never going to win a championship because these things are wrong with them. Well, okay, you can say that about everybody. Every team has a these things are wrong with them that's out there. There's not some team that just looks unbeatable out here in college basketball, and there never will be an unbeatable team in college basketball.
Absolutely.
Listen, man, 13 threes, bro. That's how many Florida hit in this game.
Yeah,
13.
I'm telling you, unreal. Yeah, they hit a lot. Look, man, I'm telling you, it was a special performance by them last night.
They had some dude come off the bench. No disrespect to this young man. You know, no disrespect to him. Klavzar, perfect from three. He hit 3 of 3 from three. This dude never plays, and that's because of the injury to Elijah Martin in the game. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this. He's a Florida fan. Wasn't Kenny B. It's another guy that I know, but I don't respect Kenny B's basketball take. Hopefully Kenny's watching this so I can tell him on
No.
camera. I don't respect Kenny B's basketball takes because he don't pay attention to basketball until Florida beats Auburn. Like you can go down his timeline and look. He don't be tweeting about no basketball until that
All right,
game
there you
comes
go.
up. So if you ain't giving me basketball takes in no other time, I don't want to hear it, brother. You're a bandwagon. But my other homeboy, who I know that's a Florida fan, talking to him about this game, I actually think, oddly enough, Auburn may have been better off with Elijah Martin playing in this game because of the style that Martin is a scorer, but he's more of a slasher than he is a spot up shooter. And the ability, and even though Martin can shoot threes and he's not like a bad 3-point shooter, he had been on a slump actually before this injury. And he might have shot them out of the game at some points just with trying to force himself into the rotation and getting shots up potentially. But this guy coming in and people not really having a lot of film on him, knowing what to expect, and he goes out there and busts you over the head for 9 with 3 threes, may have done something differently than what Martin would have done in this game as far as the attention that Auburn paid to him. So,
right.
And you lose the game. Hear me. You lose the game by 9 points, and this random dude has 9 coming off of the bench.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it is what it is. Auburn took the L, and you got to just accept that and move on. You hate that it came at home. You hate that you feel like you probably could have played better in this game. And you score 81 and still lose. Not the best of situations, but you got opportunities. Listen, you got to have a short memory because right around the corner is 2 road trips coming up, 2 Vanderbilt, 2 Tuscaloosa, and you can't afford to play around in either one of those games because Vanderbilt's going to come in there feeling on top of the world because they've already taken down 2 highly touted teams in their building this season, and you know what that Bama game is going to be next Saturday. So you got to handle business in these next 2 games and make it make sense for yourself again. And hopefully, again, this was what they needed to say. All right, bro, we're locked in. I'm not allowing this to happen again.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. Let's get to a quick break. We're going to get to the other side of the break, take some of your comments, and then we're going to talk about this #1 ranking because the question that has been all over social media is Auburn still the #1 team in the country? Mike G has made his feelings very clear about this for a while, but I want to hear your thoughts. We're going to talk about this on the other side of the break. You guys are watching the Weekend Tailgate. This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Weekend Tailgate, you guys know the deal. Sign up as a patron, $5.99 a month will get you there. Ike will be on the road, people, covering Auburn basketball like nobody else does. It's regrettable that we have to send you to Tuscaloosa. Isaac, my heart hurts for you. That you have to drive into that godforsaken town. But that's the job. We're here to do it. $5.99 a month. Become a patron, please. This show is brought to you in part by our friends at Underdog Sports. New customers get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make that first deposit. All you got to do is pick higher or lower on 2 picks. Like, that's it. People are winning lots of cash on Underdog right now. They are great sponsors of the War Report this basketball season. We appreciate them for coming on. Again, download the app and use code RAPPORT to make sure that you cash in on all those bonuses that they're offering at Underdog. Again, new customer deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash to play with on your entry. Pick higher or lower on 2 or more players, and then watch the cash flow. Underdog Sports, we appreciate them for sponsoring the War Report.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. As always, we're going to get over here into your comments. Before we do, if you guys didn't know, we've been doing this little segment for a while, or for the last couple of weeks, where I give you guys just some quick news and notes from Auburn sports. So I'm going to get into that really quickly. What we have here is, let me get this off of the screen. Baseball news. Ike Irish, Cooper McMurray get preseason honors for all first team preseason all SEC. So the catcher there, Ike Irish, is going to be named first team, second team all SEC first baseman there, Cooper McMurray. As well, Ike Irish is on a watch list. Let me make sure I get that correct for the young man. He was named to the Golden Spikes Award preseason watch list. So potentially some awards coming in the direction of Auburn baseball if they live up to the expectations of the preseason. But good signs for a program that struggled a little bit last year, and looking for a bounce back year in Auburn baseball. In Auburn tennis, Alex Frusina is freshman of the week in the SEC. He had a really good week last week. I talked a little bit about the win that he was able to secure versus Middle Tennessee with his final match that he had to break the 3-3 tie. And this is the first time that a Tiger has won that award this season. So Congrats to Alex in getting the Freshman of the Week award. 2 golden finishes in the discus and the hammer throw for Auburn in track and field out there. Make sure I pull this up properly. Where did there we go. For Mara, I don't know how to pronounce this properly. Oh my God. Hugh Walt and Kyle Brown at the Byron College Station, Texas, in the R.A. Murray Faskin, indoor track competition that came up. I should have practiced saying some of these words because I'm screwing them up right now, but it doesn't matter. They finished first place in both of those competitions, in the weight throw and the shot put. So congrats to them for doing that. Auburn equestrian, who has been amazing over the last decade. I don't know.
Yeah. It's so good.
Pair of wins, one over the number 9 team, UT Martin, and then another one over Minnesota Crookstown. They are currently the number 1 ranked equestrian team in the country still. Stellar, I don't know if you guys caught this, but Auburn took down Georgia in gymnastics in the most epic fashion. For those who were not watching the meet, Georgia was winning going into the last rotation. The final rotation was Georgia on the balance beam and Auburn on the floor, and Georgia was putting up like 9s and 9.95. It was like crazy. So Auburn had to basically be flawless on the floor. And it was Sophia Groth took it at the end with a phenomenal performance on the floor, enough to get Auburn the win there. So they defeat number 11 Georgia inside of Neville Arena there. That was an awesome moment there. Auburn softball starts off with a win in their doubleheader. I think they're currently winning their game today as well, but they defeated App State and Southern Illinois in that doubleheader that they had going on yesterday. So congrats to them for getting the new era started there in great fashion. Auburn tennis got their first loss of the season, unfortunately, going down to number 1 team in the country, Georgia. So Auburn Gym got the Georgia win. Auburn tennis, unfortunately, takes the loss there. But congrats to them for having a pretty good week otherwise. And then Auburn women's basketball got back in the win column with the win versus Texas A&M. A really good performance out there. Another double-digit scoring game for Yuting Dang, who is quickly becoming somebody who you got to pay attention to out there as a scoring threat, along with Deanna Gaston, who has been on a watch list of her own. She was Let me before I get into Deanna, let me say Marshawn Bostic with the double-double, the first double-double of her career.
Yeah, she
Um,
was dangerously close to a triple-double.
yeah. Yeah, she was doing her thing. Somebody who has been kind of much maligned in people who are talking about Auburn women's basketball, talking a lot about Marshawn. I think she's done well. Frustrating at times. She frustrates the crap out of me sometimes with some of the turnovers that she had, but congrats to her. But yeah, Deanna Gaston was on the watch list for college women basketball all-star game coming up. So congrats to her as well on that. And with that, let's get back over and talk a little bit more about Auburn basketball, Auburn men's basketball. And we'll get over here to the comment section real quick.
Before we move on, though, I do want to note about gymnastics. This is the second meet this year at home where Auburn Gymnastics has pulled out something crazy at the end.
Yeah, the OK State one. Yeah.
Oh my God, a stat correction at the end. I had people walking up to me after, and they were like, "I thought we lost," and I was like, "Yeah, I thought we lost too." And they corrected it this time. As much as Georgia was killing it, a little bit of a slip on the beam by one of the Georgia stars left it open.
Like the smallest, like she slipped a little bit, and then her dismount, she had like a little hop, and I was like, I think that might.
I might do it. Yeah,
nails it. Yeah.
And then
because I was looking at the scores going, and I was like, okay, so the first, beam versus the first floor, Auburn, had the higher score. I think the Georgia person had like a 9.7. Auburn had like a 9.9 or something like, or 9.85, something like that. And I was like, okay, so Auburn did enough in the first one. The next three from Georgia were like 9.9s. I was like, yo, this is crazy. But Auburn had like a 9.8, 9.9, 9. I was like, okay, like you're keeping it close enough. And it came down to the final performances for each person, and they had just the slightest mistake. And Grow was almost perfect, and so Auburn walked away with that win. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, we've got some amazing pictures from that game that we're going to post to our social media. So follow us on Instagram for Auburn Gymnastics covers. Our photographer was there, taking some great photos there. I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't make it to gymnastics Friday night. I saved all my energy for basketball. Kind of wish I went to gymnastics.
It would have been a happier feeling leaving Neville Arena for sure.
Yeah.
Wesley Hilson with the update says 11-1 was the final today for softball. So they got their third win today. Softball team doing well in the preseason. Hopefully they can continue that momentum, because SEC play again in another sport is going to be absolutely brutal. So you got to stack up those wins in the non-con so that you can embrace or brace yourself for the conference play. The SEC is a gauntlet in freaking every sport right now. Get to the comment section, then we'll have this conversation about the rankings. But this first comment is about that. It says, I've seen some of the wildest mental gymnastics, and ESPN saying Bama will be number one is top tier glazing.
Yeah,
we will talk about that here in just a minute, Tim, for sure. Lawrence commenting on the Florida game saying missed layups and defensive rebounding were two keys as to why Auburn lost this game. We didn't talk about the rebounding. Rebounding was a big thing that I harped on in the pregame, in the preview of it. Florida only won the rebounding. Actually, Auburn and Florida were even in total rebounds for the game. And Auburn actually had more offensive boards than Florida. But Florida was able to get more defensive rebounds. So rebounding in key moments, though, felt like the issue. It wasn't necessarily that Auburn got brutalized on the boards. It just felt like when Florida needed that board, they got it.
Yeah.
And when Auburn really needed that board, that 9 times out of 10, they were not getting it. And the unfortunate reality is the times that they did get it, they weren't converting on the other end. So like the conversion rate, like a lot of it was fast break points, 14-3, right? Like Florida was running a lot off of misses, and they were running off of turnovers. In the game, Auburn had only 8 turnovers. Like, again, you feel like Auburn didn't play well, but then when you look at the stats, they shot 43%, 32% from 3. The free throws was a big thing. Now, they did not shoot well in the free throw line, but
this effort would have been good enough to beat almost every other team in the SEC on any given night, based on how we've seen other people play. Florida has been playing on the road all year. Yeah. I just think you got to give Florida credit, man. They came in. Todd Golden said it. I think this is as best as we could have played in this environment. It was
Yeah.
crazy. And I got to tell you, well, it was crazy in there. The fans have been doing their part in Neville Arena all basketball season. They showed up. They've been loud. It was as loud as I've heard any game so far this year. So, look, I just think this was a special performance by Florida. I don't think it's time to panic.
Yeah.
It is February the 9th, and this is their second loss of the season.
Yeah.
You would take that every single year. If I told you before the season started, Auburn will lose their second game 9 days into February, you'd be like, well, damn, it's going to be a pretty good season.
Sign me up.
Yeah. This is nothing I saw in this game says represents a trend, I think, of Auburn spiraling down. Denver Jones just had a tough game, man. I mean,
after he just had 2 good games, right? So
yeah,
it's not as if he, he had been playing poorly, then he played well, he played poorly again.
That's it. They scored 81 points. If Auburn had lost this game like 90-65 or something like that, I think we'd be having a different conversation today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, it was about getting stops, and it was about the free throw line. 14 of 23 from the free throw line is just not a good outing. And the unfortunate reality is the guy who went to the free throw line the most is the worst free throw shooter on the team.
Cardwell, yeah. And look, he made like 4 out of 5 the other night.
Right, and he made 1 out of 5 last night.
Yeah. So, it's not something you should depend on every night.
That was a big issue. Is the free throw line just wasn't Auburn's friend in this game. And conversely, Florida was 15 of 18, right? Like that's 2 games in a row where teams just seem like they're not missing from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Because Oklahoma made like 21 of 23 or something crazy like that the other night. So let's see. JJ Brand jumps in and says, y'all know Auburn will never get the benefit of the doubt. Prepare to not be number 1, but it really doesn't matter. Bounce back, keep winning, and we'll be a number 1 seed.
Yeah, there are plenty of opportunities left on this schedule, JJ, I think, for Auburn to get because the goal at this point has to be number 1 overall seed of the tournament. You get that number 1 overall seed. It's not just about being number 1 overall and having the easiest path. It's about the regions that they get to play in. As the number 1 overall seed, they are potentially in Lexington, Kentucky at Rupp for the first round, and then Atlanta for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, and then obviously San Antonio just is what it is for the Final Four. But you could not ask for 2 better host sites. Now, Raleigh, North Carolina is also a potential first round destination, which I don't think would be bad either in terms of distance from here. It's about the same, I think. But yeah, I mean, if you're Auburn, that has to be your goal, is to make sure you end up in Raleigh or in Lexington in that first round of the tournament and not Seattle. After Spokane, I may never go back to the state of Washington after last spring. I don't know. That's why there was an Auburn fan sitting behind me on the plane, and he tweeted at me. He was like, I think we're going to avoid the trip to Washington this year, brother. And I was like, oh my God. Because there are not that many direct flights from this region into Spokane. So a bunch of Auburn people ended up on the same flight, headed out there on the day that I flew out there. I'm just not doing it again. Not doing it again. So if they end up in Seattle, I'll tell you, like, I'll be at home watching it with the rest of you guys.
Yeah.
So if you're Auburn, take care of business, man. Get to Raleigh, get to Lexington.
For sure. Greg Wheatley says it seems to always go back to missed free throws. We talked about that just a second ago. Phil Petway says, listen, defense is what we have to lean on. That's our identity. Run more plays for Miles Kelly. Miles got his fair share of stuff that they were running for him in this game, and he scored 22 points.
Right.
I think the problem is, the contributions again from the other people just weren't where they needed to be. All right, let's talk about this ranking situation, Mike.
Okay.
Auburn takes the L. Social media goes into this complete meltdown about how Auburn's about to lose their number 1 ranking. And lo and behold, just a few short hours later, the number 2 team in the country loses as well in Duke.
Oh, Duke lost to Clemson. Yes. That's right. I was watching that was going on while we were at the game.
Yeah.
And so I saw that Clemson, it was close. Like Clemson was up by like a couple points when I saw it.
So Clemson takes Duke and gives them their now 3rd L of the season. And then everybody's like, oh, this opens the door for Bama. Bama's going to be the number 1 team in the country. And Bama is putting hands to Arkansas. They were up by like 20 in this game.
Yep.
And Arkansas marched back and made it super close at the end.
Yep.
Mike G, again, you've made your thoughts clear on this, but just for the record, is Auburn still the number 1 team in the country when the polls come out? If Mike has a vote, is Auburn still number 1 team in the country?
We vote on a lot of things at the War Report. I don't think people realize, like in the media, like we vote preseason all SEC. We go to media days for basketball. Like we vote on a lot of things. One day, I hope to have a vote on this.
Yeah.
One day, one day I will have a vote on this. One day you will have a vote on this. One day, damn it, the War Report will have a vote on this very thing that we're talking about right here. And I think when you look at these net rankings, it's still not particularly close. 12-2 in quad 1 games, man. There is not another team in the country that has double-digit quad 1 wins.
Right.
Give me a break, dude. This is still the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, I was adamant that if Auburn lost, they would lose their ranking unless Duke lost as well.
Yes.
And Duke lost as well.
And which loss was worse?
Yeah, I mean, they lost to Clemson
Auburn
unranked.
lost at home, and I think the Duke game was on the road.
It was on the road, but it was an unranked team, and Auburn lost to the number 6 team in the country.
Yeah, Clemson is 30 in the net. Florida is 5 in the net. Give me a break. This is still the number 1 team in the country. I don't care what Jay Williams is going to come out and say. You know, he was waiting on this. As soon as Auburn lost, he was like, oh, this is what I'm trying to tell y'all. And then Duke lost.
Yes. Yes.
So give me a break, man.
I can't follow the Bama will be number 1 logic, though, because Bama already has more losses than Auburn on the season. They lost to Purdue. They lost at home.
We have
bad to Ole Miss.
We got 2 like opponents in the non-conference to compare these schedules at this point.
3.
Yeah. Like at this point, there's no reason to move them ahead of Auburn. Let them sort it out on the court on February 15th.
Yeah.
If they win that one and you want to move them to number 1, okay. But if we're talking,
it'll make sense. You'll have identical records and they've won the head-to-head. Yes.
Yeah. Moving to number 1.
But I don't know how you put Bama above Auburn when Bama has 3 losses, Auburn has 2, and Auburn has the better resume.
Yeah, depending on who, again, if you look at WarrenNolan.com, Alabama had a slightly harder
strength of schedule. I get it.
Non-conference strength of schedule than Auburn did. But I think, but the margin is so minuscule, it's negligible.
Right.
And I think if you look at the 2 games Auburn has lost at Duke and against number 6 Florida, who already has taken down a number 1 this season, when you're looking at Bama's schedule, I think they have worse losses. But I can't point to better wins on their schedule than Auburn has.
Correct.
Plus, so you're 7-3 in quad 1 games, and that's pretty good if you're Alabama. But just be clear, it's not 12-2.
Yeah. I can do that math.
We got 5 more quad 1 wins than you do, buddy.
Yeah.
We played 4 more quad 1 games. You were bound to lose one of them. And if you're Auburn, you're sitting here at the season with 2 top 5 losses. Yeah. Because Florida's going to move into the top 5. So, okay, 2 top 6 losses if we want to be, professors about this. But at the end of the day, what other resume stacks up?
Yeah, there isn't one.
Now, I would have I get the sentiment if we're having this conversation, Ike, earlier in the season at the opening of SEC play, but we've seen and I think that's been the difference between this Auburn team and Auburn teams in the past is that we've been having this conversation mid-January.
Yeah.
But you're through 2/3 of the schedule already. So we know what Auburn is and we know what everybody else is. And when you take those resumes and you put them all up against each other, people, Auburn still leads, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't find a metric for you to justify other than I just don't want Auburn to be number one. Like, if at the end of the day that's what your thought process is, then there's nothing that they just don't look like the number one team in the country to me. Okay, I guess, but like, based on what?
There's
All of the winning they're doing?
there's no metaphorical, there's no statistical, there's no factual argument against Auburn not being number one come tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Other than the bias that exists in the eyes of the media and people like John Wilner, who just don't want to give Auburn credit everywhere. The Jeff Goodmans of the world, these people who, Auburn's not that talented. They don't have enough NBA players. All that amounts to absolutely nothing in the face of what they have accomplished this season. 2 losses on February the 9th. If this had been Duke,
teams.
if it had been Kansas, if it had been North Carolina, they'd been talking about them like they were the best team in the last 15 years. 12-2 in quad win games. If they're not number one come tomorrow morning, the system is a farce. And this is why we don't use the AP.
Yeah.
To decide who goes. When I woke up this morning, Auburn was still number one in the net.
Because they deserve to be.
Because they deserve to be number one in the net. We've seen enough. We are over 2/3 of the way through the season.
Yeah, like if Duke had won, then I think that there's a legitimate reason. Yeah, because Duke has the head-to-head.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I wouldn't be mad at that. Now, in anybody else not sitting in the number one spot, I'm going to be upset at.
Yeah,
and I think it's a healthier debate. Does Alabama deserve to jump Duke now that Duke has lost and they have the same number of losses?
I think 2 through 5 is a great debate.
Yeah.
As of today, February 9th, 2:52 and 45 seconds. It's not a debate. Auburn is still the number one team in the country. Now, that could all change in a week. But right now, the way I see it,
as of today, I'm not projecting where they'll be at the end of the season. But today, as we sit today, they should be the number one team.
Number one team in the country come tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly close. And it's frustrating for me that there is a narrative out there that exists that this should be a debate, because I just don't know how you justify it. Like, give me your justification based upon what has actually transpired and not I just don't think they're the best team anymore. This is not what this is. It's not a beauty contest. You win it on the court. You win and lose it on the court. They only have 2 losses. No other team in the country can say that. No other team stacks up in quad 1 wins. No other team has the conference resume that Auburn has, with only 1 loss in conference, and the only loss that they have coming to a team that's highly rated as what Auburn is like. I just don't. It's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. And I get frustrated when people try to justify, and some of it's trolling, right? Some people are just saying stuff because, that's what they want to do. But like, serious conversations, this should not be.
It should be a serious conversation. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to these comments here and get out of here. Appreciate you guys jumping in here. If you haven't already liked the video, there's 129 of you all in here, and I only see 23 likes. So I'm like, what's
Super Bowl Sunday? I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, people.
Yeah,
we're gonna be watching it. I'm gonna be watching it. I don't know if you're gonna be watching. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, I don't care. But yeah, it's not a real thing. Robert Guy, let's just jump it off with him, who says still won't matter. Bama is 7-3 in quad 1. Auburn is 12-2 in quad 1. That is what Mike G was just saying. Let's see. G Bird, no resume is as good as Auburn's. Can't compare. No team is even close. I agree with you. Tim the Tool Main says Jeff Goodman actually thinks Auburn should be number 1. So Goodman on the right side of history today. Like that. Marshall Jones says Auburn finally peaked and is on their way down from here. You are the ray of sunshine today, Marshall.
Oh, Marshall, all right, Marshall. I don't know. I like Marshall. I don't know why he said that. Why would you say that?
Marshall is a contrarian sometimes. He's trying to shake things up, I guess, today. D Lev says we want the overall number 1 seed. You are absolutely correct on that one. We definitely want to be the number 1 overall seed when it's time for the tourney. Let's see here. That's a Super Bowl comment. Boom, 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 boom. I'm trying to see what else is out here about this Auburn versus Florida or the rankings thing. Chris Stiff says the AP voters in the North and West wanted a reason. So he's saying they just needed a reason. I mean, they want a reason, but they don't have one. I don't think that this loss
I don't
is
think
a
the reason
reason.
exists. Yeah.
Again, if Duke had not lost, then this conversation to me is wide open, and I would not be shocked to see Duke be number 1 at the end of it all. When it come, AP poll hitting tomorrow, but I can't give you a good reason why anybody else should be in that one line now that Duke has lost.
Agreed.
Can't give me a good reason. I can give you some made up stuff, but I can't give you any good ones. Tim says we won't be unanimous, but should still be number 1. I'm not mad at this if it's not unanimous, right? If somebody is like, oh well, they're good, but they're not the best team in the country, so I'm gonna put such and such up there. I could see that happening, but I don't. They had been the unanimous number 1 for like 2 weeks straight or something like that, 3 weeks straight. So them not being unanimous after this, got it. But yeah, they should still be number 1. Riley says Ike Jones for Auburn AD. Auburn is number 1.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
I don't know what the AD makes in paycheck, but I'll take that. You know what I'm saying? I'll take that paycheck for sure. I mean, you know what? Being an athletic director has to be a pretty thankless job, right? Because you can't actually impact what happens with those teams. Like once the hiring is done, you can't do anything but go out there and raise money and hope that you can fund these programs effectively. But you have this really dubious task of trying to figure out when is the time to give a coach more money and when is a time to say we're at our limit to what we can do for you here. What I mean by more money, it's not just contract stuff, right? Like you think about the Gus Malzahn years where he was getting these extensions and raises and everybody was like, they extended them again, but they always did it like right at the wrong time. And then right after he got the raise and the extension is when the team started to go in the other direction. Also, like how much funding do you put behind a struggling program to help them get over the hump? Like, do I put more money into this to try to figure out, is this a way that we can make it better for this coach and get them well equipped? And then like the hiring and firing decisions, like it's a thankless job, man, that you probably get wrong a lot and you get blamed a lot for stuff. And just as long as you're not doing it the way Byrne does it down in Bama, I think you're good though. Anyway, that's it. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Mike G?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I said what I had to say. I think that Auburn is the number 1 team in the country as of today. Nothing's going to change between now and the time the AP poll comes out tomorrow. So hopefully the AP voters vote with integrity. This perception will matter when it comes to seeding because it's still humans doing this. Right. And I think that while the AP poll is not officially used, I think in any calculation about who makes the tournament, who doesn't, it still helps drive public perception. And that includes people in the media who don't have time to watch all the games. So, like to the extent that there is bias that exists against Auburn in the media because they are not a traditional blue blood, more of what we would call a new blood, then, the voting this the right way, I think matters in that sense, Ike, right? Making sure that people perceive the program correctly so that when Selection Sunday comes, everybody knows what we hope will be true at the time. And that is that Auburn is no one overall seed in the country. And it shouldn't matter what happens in that SEC tournament. Because they've proven over and over again that they don't give a damn what happens there either. What you are going in is what you will be. And I think if you're Auburn and you finish as the undisputed regular season champion of this year's SEC, which is the best by far, not even close, you should be the number 1 overall in the tournament. Winning this conference should mean number 1 overall. And I say that no matter whether it's Auburn or Florida or Alabama or Kentucky or Tennessee.
Yeah.
Right. If
This,
anyone
this
of
is
those
a this is
teams
a very
finish,
good point right here before we get out of here. Celestial Grimace says hanging on to that #1 seed projection is a lot harder for us than say a Gonzaga who plays in a moderately difficult OOC out of conference schedule and then plays a car salesman in the WCC. Yes,
yes.
like Gonzaga plays nobody for 20 something games out of the year, and then people are like, "Oh, they're the best team in the country," and it's like they haven't played anybody.
Yeah. And then they go far in the tournament, but they get the easiest path, right? Because of that perception. So, I mean, look, man, I get it. Like, I just think it's time to start breaking that old way of thinking and start letting some new people into the conversation when it comes to that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get out of here, Mike G. Tell the people things they can do to support the channel.
Yeah, you guys already know. Want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Spring is here, Ike. It's coming, and it's time to get outside and grill. Golden's Cast Iron is helping you guys grill up memories with your family. I got my dad the Kamado grill for Father's Day a couple of years ago. Just lots of great family memories being made around that thing. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, join as a member. Ike will be on the road over the last third of this schedule, traveling for you guys, covering Auburn basketball. You can help keep that work going by joining as a member. We want to thank our show sponsors, Underdog Sports. New customers get up to $1,000 if you're a new customer deposit in bonus cash. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more players in any games. And bam, you have a chance to win big money with your entry on Underdog Sports. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, our friends at Vintage 2298 Restaurant. Go visit them. Guys, I know it's the off season, and I know a lot of local businesses thrive during football season, but it is really important that we support local businesses during this downtime in sports, kind of in the area. They need our support. If you're going out to eat, do it with our friends at Vintage 2298 Restaurant. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Great partners in the community. Let's be great partners back by patroning the businesses in our community. And also the Rogue Shop. Again, if the loss stung you last night, the Rogue Shop can help ease the pain. RogueShop.com. Use code report to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order.
Yes, indeed. Before you guys get out of here, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on social media. We're at The War Report, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back at you with more great Auburn content this week. Once again, Auburn versus Vandy coming up, so we will be covering that game. Women's basketball is on the road versus Oklahoma tomorrow. So hopefully you guys get a chance to check that out. All these great Auburn sports happening right now. Auburn's amazing at a bunch of things right now. So make sure you're supporting all of them as much as you can. But we are out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.